Oliver was on a business trip abroad when he got caught in a terrorist attack. Everyone was calling me. My mother-in-law said she and my father-in-law were at the embassy, anxiously waiting for me to help negotiate with them. Even my father, who hadn't called me once in 10 years, rang me. He said he had connections at the embassy and might be able to get Oliver repatriated. Even my best friend, Oliver's colleagues, neighbors, and buddies were all calling to ask for updates. Only I, recovering from childbirth, calmly hung up one call after another. After all, when Oliver saw the news about his ex-girlfriend, a war correspondent, being trapped in a terrorist zone, he had no hesitation in abandoning his wife and newborn to fly out and check on her safety. At the time, clutching my belly with amniotic fluid already leaking, I asked him, "Are you really choosing to abandon your wife and child to fly into a war zone? If you go, Oliver, I swear, I won't clean up the mess for you." He didn't answer, but the sound of the slamming door said it all. So, if he's set on destroying himself, why should I be the one to save him? Chapter 1. Oliver loved watching international news. I never understood why, until the news 2 days ago. A Chinese war correspondent had been kidnapped during an on-site report. The footage was only a few seconds long, but I recognized her, Julia, the most well-known anchor on the international channel. I was sitting on the couch, heavily pregnant, eating honeydew melon and feeling sorry for the journalist. But Oliver suddenly knocked over the fruit bowl. When he got up, his knee smashed into the coffee table hard. Even I felt my belly tighten at the sound. But Oliver didn't seem to notice the pain at all. He staggered into the kitchen and tried to get a drink, but pressed the boiling water button instead, scalding himself so badly he shattered the glass. After rinsing with cold water, he rushed into the bedroom and slammed the door shut. An hour later, he emerged and said stiffly, I have to go on a sudden business trip." I tightened my grip on the melon but stood up calmly. "Oliver, I'm due in a few days. You really think now is a good time to leave? What if I go into labor? You know, my mom died giving birth to my brother. I'm terrified of childbirth. And haven't you been saying how excited you are to meet our daughter? Don't you want her first sight in this world to be her dad?" His face turned pale, but moments later, he repeated, "This trip is important, I have to go. But don't worry. I promise I'll be back before the baby comes." I smiled, even though by then, my belly was already contracting, and amniotic fluid had begun to stream down my legs. "I'll let you go, but Oliver, let me be clear, whatever happens because of this trip, you'll bear the consequences. I won't cover for you." Maybe the seriousness in my expression made him flinch a little. He nodded solemnly. "Don't worry, I swear I'll come back safe." Then he rushed back into the room, tossed a few clothes into a bag, put on his shoes, and headed for the door. I couldn't stop the softness in my heart. "Oliver, wait." He turned back, annoyed. "You said I could go. What now?" My hands clenched, the pain in my belly growing sharper, but I just said calmly, "You forgot your passport." Dragging my soaked legs, I headed to the bedroom. After handing him his passport, I also gave him a bank card. This card contained all the salary Oliver had transferred to me over the 7 years of our marriage. Seeing my actions, Oliver's hand trembled slightly as he took the passport and the card. Even his eyes turned a faint red. For a split second, I thought he might stay, but instead, he stuffed both into his bag and once again swore, "Don't worry. I promise I'll be back before you go into labor." Then he slammed the door shut and hurried away. I listened to the hollow echo of the slamming door and calmly dialed 120, calling for an ambulance and the staff from the postpartum center. A man who didn't even notice my water had broken still had the audacity to make a solemn vow. How ridiculous. Chapter 2. Oliver and I met in a mountaineering club. At the time, I was under immense pressure at work, focused solely on making money. I burned myself out with overtime, relying on weekend hikes to recharge. Oliver joined the club a year after I did. At first, he was just another member, but since we were always the first two to reach the summit, we gradually grew closer. He worked in finance. I worked in tech. He loved hiking. So did I. So, on the day we reached our 100th summit, he confessed to me, no romance, no gimmicks, just a simple, "Nicole, let's date." And I said yes. After all, My dad had once lit up half the city with fireworks to woo my mom, a grand gesture that got him arrested. But that didn't stop him from later demanding a son, which led to my mom taking Chinese medicine for years and eventually dying during childbirth. So for me, romance didn't matter, flashiness didn't matter, stability did. And Oliver was nothing if not stable. He was never late for a date. His gifts were never creative, but he always brought something. He never offered to pick me up in the rain, but if I asked, he always came. So in our 3rd year of dating, we got married. Life after marriage was no different. I cooked. He did the dishes. I did the grocery shopping. He steamed the rice. The peaceful, steady days made me believe Oliver was the one for me. Until 3 years ago, when we attended the wedding of one of Oliver's college friends. During the bachelor party, one of his buddies got drunk and, clutching Oliver's hand, cried his eyes out. Oliver, it breaks my heart to see how lifeless you've become. I'm married now, stepping into happiness. But seeing you like this hurts me so much. If only Julia hadn't gone abroad to be a war correspondent, maybe you wouldn't have shut down and closed off your heart. Oliver immediately looked at me. Ignore him. He's drunk, he said. I smiled but said nothing. Later that night, I made a pointed remark. Oliver, I have many flaws, but my one strength is cutting off love without hesitation. He stood in the shadows, so I couldn't see his expression. But after that, Julia vanished completely from our world. Until now. Chapter 3. I hadn't answered the phone. I had just finished breastfeeding my daughter at the postpartum center when my mother-in-law burst in anxiously. Nicole, why haven't you picked up? Do you have any idea how frantic your dad is at the embassy? You need to come home with me right now and take Oliver's documents to the embassy. I calmly responded with 6 digits, 666,313. She paused, stunned. I carefully tucked my daughter's blanket around her before explaining. I'm still in recovery. That's the password to the house. You can get whatever documents you need from there. Her hands trembled slightly. Nicole, how can you be so heartless? Oliver is in a war zone, and we don't even know if he's still alive. Didn't you see his mass text for help? He said he was shot in the leg and is hiding in a stranger's house trying to avoid gunfire. I know you're recovering, but this is an emergency. Can't you just come with me to the embassy? Just to confirm what's going on? She was visibly shaking as she spoke, but I remained calm. I know exactly what's going on with Oliver. Before he sent that mass text, he messaged me several times asking for help. I ignored him. Her body staggered like she'd been struck. Seeing her expression, I felt a twinge of guilt. After all, in the 7 years I'd been married to Oliver, she had treated me with genuine kindness, filling the hole left by the loss of my own mother. But now, Oliver had destroyed all of that. I calmly handed her the video recording of my conversation with Oliver that night. Mom, don't blame me for being cold. This was Oliver's choice. With trembling fingers, she took the phone. When she finished watching, she collapsed onto the floor. It took her several tries before she found her voice again. Listen to me, Nicole, there's nothing going on between Oliver and Julia. Despite everything, I couldn't harden my heart. Even though I was in pain from my C-section, I still got out of bed to help her up. Just like when my water broke and Oliver walked out without looking back. And I still softened enough to give him my bank card and passport. I know there was nothing physical between him and Julia, but the fact that he abandoned his wife and newborn daughter to rush into a war zone just to find her? That tells me exactly how little our family meant to him. He chose to make my daughter fatherless and me a widow, just to chase after Julia. So now, he has to face the consequences of that decision. Her face went pale under the weight of my words. She opened her mouth to speak several times but couldn't find the words. Maybe even she couldn't justify it anymore. Eventually, she gave up trying to convince me, her body still trembling. She slowly stood up. Take care of yourself during recovery. I'll be going now. As she turned to leave, she suddenly looked like she'd aged years in a moment. Despite everything, I still called out to her before she walked out the door. Mom, let me know when it's convenient this week for you and Dad to move out of my apartment. She stopped and looked back. Can't you wait a little longer? I shook my head. Oliver didn't wait to take me to the hospital after my water broke before hopping on that flight overseas. Did he? I just want everything, our marital assets and all, settled before he returns. Chapter 4. Maybe my words had finally broken my mother-in-law's resolve, because she left the postpartum center trembling and defeated. I let out a long sigh and lay back down on the hospital bed. The incision from my C-section had started to bleed a little from when I helped her up. It hurt a lot, but I simply called the doctor to change the gauze. Calm and composed. That evening, my father barged in furiously. "What's the meaning of this? Why did you send out a message saying you and Oliver are getting divorced?" It wasn't until he brought it up that I remembered, after my mother-in-law left. I had picked up my phone to watch a show. The notifications had been non-stop. Oliver's co-workers, his cousins, his friends, everyone was messaging me, asking about Oliver. It was driving me insane. So I did what Oliver did when he was overseas. I sent out a mass message. "Sorry everyone, Mr. Oliver and I will be getting a divorce when he returns. As for his situation in the war zone and any injuries from explosions or combat, I have no idea. If you'd like updates, please contact his parents directly." Just like I'd expected, the phone finally went quiet, while I was lost in thought. My father, seeing I hadn't replied, angrily kicked the foot of my hospital bed. "This is how selfish you are. Your husband is still in a war zone, possibly dead, and you're already rushing to get a divorce? Is this what I raised you to be? So cold-hearted and ungrateful? Do you know how humiliated I am in front of our relatives? They're drowning me in spit." I curled my lips into a cold smirk. "So what you're saying is, I should be dragging my post-op, stitched-up body around to beg people for help saving a husband who chose to go chase his ex-girlfriend in the middle of a war? Dad, you're a man. You should know men. Do you really think Oliver would be grateful for what I did?" My father trembled with rage. I knew why. My mother had been in poor health. She wasn't supposed to have another child. But my father, desperate for a son, fed her lies to manipulate her. And in the end, she died giving birth, both mother and child gone. He regretted it later. But what good did that do? The following year, he brought home a stepmother. The year after, a new son. So yes, men know men. Oliver's story will go one of two ways. Either he dies on the battlefield, or, as these melodramatic romances go, he and his ex, the war correspondent, will fall madly in love amid the chaos, even if they never get physically involved. How could I stay in a marriage like that? How could I live with a man willing to risk his life for another woman? If the ending is going to be divorce anyway, then why not cut my losses now? My father and I were never close. He rushed over not out of love, but because it would have looked bad if he didn't show up when his son-in-law got into serious trouble. So after scolding me a few more times, he left the postpartum center. Not once did he ask if my wound hurt, or if his newborn granddaughter was doing well. But I didn't feel hurt, only angry. Because in the end, my daughter had been woken up by all this nonsense her father caused, crying her little heart out. Chapter 5. After that, my life finally returned to peace. I listed the house Oliver and I shared for sale at a low price. Everything inside the marital home, I had someone throw it all out. Oliver's personal belongings, all packed up and delivered to his parents' house. Other things, like the crib, stroller, and baby clothes he bought for our daughter, I threw those out too. A father who doesn't love his child doesn't deserve a place in her life. Before selling the house, I asked my mother-in-law if she wanted to buy out my half. She hesitated, but I advised her calmly, "Mom, you and Dad should just rent for now. Keep the money from the sale and your savings. If Oliver comes back crippled or half paralyzed, you'll need that money to get by." Her face turned purple from anger at my words. My father-in-law was so furious he nearly slapped me, but I remained composed. "Dad, didn't you just spend $1 million to pull some strings? You're finally seeing a glimmer of hope in getting Oliver repatriated. Don't mess it up by hitting me and getting arrested. Oliver and Mom still need you." With that, I calmly had the staff escort them out of the postpartum center. Everything proceeded exactly as I'd planned, except for one thing, a thorn I couldn't pull out, the bank statement from the lawyer. Turns out, for the past 7 years, Oliver had been making regular donations to poor children overseas. Some were small, around 3,000 yuan, but others, 50,000, even 100,000. In total, over $1 million. Every donation went to Project Q, a global child aid initiative where Julia, his ex, was the project lead. All these years, Oliver and I basically split everything 50-50ths. Even during my pregnancy. We went Dutch. He covered his expenses. I covered mine and the baby's. I used to think he was saving up his salary. But no, he gave it all away to build schools and clinics abroad. If he donated to kids here in our country, I might not have been so angry. We still have hundreds of millions of people at home who can't afford food. And yet, he chose to pity children overseas. He didn't buy a school district apartment for his own daughter, but emptied his savings to support his ex-girlfriend's charity work. Whatever remaining feelings I had, they vanished. Just before I left postpartum recovery, Oliver was finally repatriated. I breathed a sigh of relief, thankfully. His dad's million hadn't been scammed. But that relief was short-lived. Another sharp sting pierced my chest. Still, I quickly pulled myself together. I did my makeup, changed clothes, and headed to the airport calmly. After all, everything had been divided. It was time to hand him the divorce papers. When I arrived, the waiting area was packed. Oliver's relatives, friends, his parents, they were all there. When they saw me, they all gave me strange looks. I ignored them. Before long, Oliver was wheeled out by airport staff. Walking beside him was a dark-skinned woman, clearly sunburned. The two looked close. As she stepped down from the jet bridge, she stumbled a bit on a stair. Oliver immediately rose from his wheelchair in alarm, urging, "Careful, you were just shot in the leg." My hands clenched instinctively. In 7 years of marriage, Oliver never reacted like that with me. When I stumbled or bumped into something, he'd just frown slightly and move on. So this was the real Oliver everyone talked about. Another stabbing pain hit my chest. Before I could collect myself, Oliver had reached the center of the crowd. He embraced his parents tightly. "Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry. I've failed you. I made you worry." His disappearance had already drained them emotionally. Now they held him, crying their hearts out. It was a touching scene. Everyone around had tears in their eyes. After the embrace, Oliver finally looked at me. His eyes turned red the moment he saw me. I walked toward him, but he didn't notice my flat stomach or the coldness in my eyes. The strange looks from the others only deepened. Oliver grabbed my hand, tears falling onto the back of it. "Nicole, I kept my promise. I came home safe." His tears were warm and disgusting. I wiped them off using the motion of patting his hand. "I'm glad you're back." Then, calmly, I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared long ago. "I need to get home to care for our daughter. Let me know if now's a good time to sign these." Chapter 6. Oliver's eyes widened instantly, staring at me in disbelief. But I spoke calmly. "Oliver, I told you that night, if you chose to go to that war-torn country, you'd have to face the consequences." As I said it, my eyes dropped to his leg, still wrapped in gauze, already stained with dark, dried blood. Not just the consequence of nearly losing a leg in a bombing overseas. Not just the consequence of your parents losing sleep night after night, desperately pulling strings to get you repatriated. But also the consequence of losing me, losing your daughter, and losing the little family we once had. "Oliver, you're a man, and a man should keep his word." My words made his entire body tremble. Maybe even he hadn't expected I could be so resolute. After all, in the 7 years of our marriage, I never shouted, never fought. He didn't give me money, I didn't ask. He didn't do chores, I picked up the slack. He asked for private space, even wanted 2 nights a week to sleep alone in his study. I gave him that, too. He was convinced I was hopelessly in love with him, and I was madly in love. In fact, why else would someone like me, terrified of marriage and motherhood, step into both for him? Give him children? But Oliver shattered the only bit of courage I ever had. He led me down the same tragic road my mother took. I don't hate Oliver, because I chose all of this myself, and I'll bear the consequences. But that doesn't mean I'll be a doormat, endlessly forgiving him. I already made the biggest compromise, accepting that he held someone else in his heart while still married to me. Just as we stood there silently staring at each other, Julia walked up anxiously. "Sis, there's really nothing between Oliver and me. You've misunderstood." I curled my lips into a cold sneer. Whether I misunderstood doesn't matter. But if you don't want everyone else to get the wrong idea, then how about returning the $1 million+ yuan? As I spoke, I pulled out Oliver's bank statements. These are the transfers Oliver made to your foundation over the years, about 1.2 million yuan in total. That money was part of our marital property, even if it was a donation. I have the legal right to trace it. If I take this to court, your little charity won't come out clean either, will it? I sneered again. And by the way, don't call me sis. You're his ex. Call him Oliver GE or whatever. That nickname makes me sick. Then I turned back to Oliver, whose face had gone even paler. Looks like you're not in the shape to sign the divorce papers today. In that case, I won't push it. I wish you a smooth recovery. Hopefully, you'll be able to drag that busted leg to divorce me soon, without caring about the shocked stares from everyone around us. I turned and walked out of the airport with my head held high. But only I knew, beneath that proud posture, my fingernails were digging so hard into my palm that the pain felt like a knife. People say divorce is like being skinned alive. They're not wrong. Some people can't endure it. I just happen to be one of those who can. Chapter 7. The moment I handed Oliver the divorce papers, I rushed home without pause. But my baby girl, still so tiny, cried until her face turned red because she couldn't smell the familiar scent of my body. My heart clenched instantly. I hurriedly lifted my shirt and began to breastfeed her. Feeling her warmth against me, the tears I had been holding back finally spilled from my eyes. I'm sorry, Sophia. I'm sorry you were born without a father. But don't worry, sweetheart. Mommy will give you all the love in the world, every last bit of it. After that, I didn't go out of my way to follow Oliver's updates. Still, I heard he was hospitalized in the ICU with sepsis and might even lose a leg, because his mother came to visit me several times. Nicole, please, I'm begging you, go see Oliver at the hospital. He keeps murmuring your name. And Sophia, please, just bring Sophia to see him once. Just once. I hardened my heart and refused. It wasn't about being cold. It was because Sophia had caught a cold recently. Hospitals are crowded with people. Oliver just came back from a foreign country. What if he had some undetected infectious disease? I couldn't use my daughter's health to satisfy Oliver's guilt. Even if Oliver had never gone abroad, even if he were just sick, I still wouldn't bring my 1-month-old baby to a hospital. And if he hadn't gone overseas in the first place, none of this would have happened to him. Once I made it clear I wouldn't budge. My mother-in-law visibly aged with each visit. I felt a little sorry seeing her like that, but all I could do was hold her hand and try to comfort her, telling her that Oliver would be okay, that he had always been lucky. His father, on the other hand, had a much shorter fuse. He showed up at my place several times yelling, pounding on the door so hard it shook the frame. Every time, my already sick baby girl would cry in fear and throw up milk from the stress. Even the nanny couldn't stay silent anymore. This family is unbelievable. The baby's so little and needs peace and quiet to recover, and they show up shouting every few days. Their son runs off to chase his mistress overseas, gets shot and crippled, and now they're trying to guilt you into bringing their only granddaughter to see him? Honestly, better if he were dead. That night when I got your call and rushed over, I found you lying in a puddle of blood and amniotic fluid, crying in pain on the floor, all alone in that house. No one was there. I wanted to scream for you. If you were my daughter, I'd have chopped that whole family to pieces. I didn't comment on the nanny's rant, but I had to admit, this house really wasn't a home anymore. Later, while sitting in the room in silence, I turned to the nanny and asked, "Does your family live in the countryside? Could I stay there for a year? I'll pay rent." Of course, she was surprised at first, but seeing how bad things were for me, she replied right away. "No need for rent. Just come. The conditions aren't great though, I'm afraid." I gave a bitter smile. How could it be worse than here? Clean air, fewer people, the countryside will be better for Sophia. She agreed immediately. That very day, we began packing our things. The next morning, we set out early, driving toward her hometown. Chapter 8. Even though the nanny said she didn't want rent, I transferred her 50,000 yuan on the spot as payment for the year. It was only at that moment that I truly appreciated how grateful I was. I had never relied on Oliver for anything otherwise. I could never have walked away this cleanly. Just as I was carrying bags downstairs with the nanny, heading to the underground garage, I opened the door and came face to face with Julia. She looked at the luggage in my hands and frowned slightly. Oliver's still in the hospital, barely clinging to life. And you're moving out instead of being by his side? Her tone carried judgment and complaint, like some kind of saint. The sight of her made me nauseous. Wasn't it you who got Oliver into this mess in the first place? And now you stand here, high and mighty, trying to guilt-trip me? Julia, having a face is a good thing. You might want to pick yours up off the floor. Julia's expression soured. You're being petty. I've told you again and again, there's nothing going on between Oliver and me. I had no idea he would come to the war zone to find me. I let out a bitter laugh. You had no contact with him? None at all? Then how did he know your foundation was short on funds? And why is it that every time he donated money, it just happened to be when you needed it? Her face turned pale. I cut her off sharply. If you can't explain, then don't say anything. There's no rule that says a famous war correspondent can't also be a homewrecker. People are complicated, I get it. Julia's face went even whiter. Please stop spreading lies. I never interfered with your marriage. I never wanted to. I smiled coldly. What a coincidence. I never wanted to get in the way of your little romance with Oliver. Either. You two can do whatever you want. Oh, and if he ever wakes up, be sure to tell him, unless it's about the divorce. Don't contact me again. With that, I shoved past Julia and stepped into the elevator. The nanny followed behind me, holding the baby, her eyes wide and glaring like laser beams. Chapter 9. After that, I never paid attention to anything about Oliver and Julia again. I changed my SIM card and moved in with the nanny, taking my daughter with me. The nanny's home was modest, but peaceful. Her husband worked out of town, and her son was already in college. Each day, I wobbled around with my daughter, feeding chickens, raising ducks, and honestly, those days were easy and joyful. It wasn't until my daughter turned 1 that I finally returned to the city Oliver and I had once called home. I reopened WeChat, which I hadn't touched in over a year. The moment I turned on my phone, it was bombarded with messages. Freezing on the spot, I deleted all chats immediately. Once the phone calmed down, I sent Oliver a message. I'm back. Let me know when you're free so we can go finalize the divorce at the Civil Affairs Bureau. He didn't reply. Just when I began to wonder if he might actually be dead, a knock sounded at the door. I jumped. I quickly glanced at the nanny, signaling her to take the baby into the room. Only once the door was closed did I go to open it, and there stood Oliver. I froze. He looked much older, more defeated, and when I saw he was missing a leg, something in my chest went still. I hadn't wanted to let him in, but seeing him standing there with a crutch, looking so pitiful, I softened. I stepped aside. Oliver's eyes instantly reddened. He opened his mouth several times, but I stopped him. Sit first. We're not in a rush. Once he was seated on the couch, I politely served him tea and fruit. The gentle wisp of steam drifted between us, just like those quiet years of our marriage. Sitting on the balcony in the late afternoons, he would read. I would play Go. Peaceful, silent. As always, Oliver spoke first. Nicole, I missed you so much. I know I hurt you, but please, don't divorce me. I can't lose you. His voice trembled, and even his empty pant leg swayed with the sobs. I already knew divorce would never be that easy. I sipped my tea calmly. I already have enough on my hands taking care of our daughter. I don't want to take care of a disabled man too. It was harsh, but it was the truth. His face went ghostly pale. I didn't flinch. I know things are hard for you right now, but I'm not a charity. I'm not obligated to save you. The only thing I can offer is a fairer property split. The original agreement gave me 60%, you 40%. Given your situation, I'm willing to switch it, 60% for you, 40% for me. Oliver's lips quivered. You're really going to be this cruel? When I was in the ICU, you disappeared with the baby. I almost died. Nicole. I gave him a calm smile. I didn't know. Why should I have? I told you before you went abroad, whatever consequences came, you'd bear them. You agreed. His hands clenched. But you didn't tell me you'd divorce me. I chuckled bitterly. I took out my phone and handed him the video from that night. In the footage, we didn't fight, but blood kept flowing from between my legs. When he left, the floor still showed footprints smeared in my blood. Those stains had been obvious. But Oliver had walked out anyway, and now he dared to blame me. After watching, he collapsed into the couch. I took another sip of tea. I'm willing to take one more step back. You can visit our daughter once a month. If she grows up and wants to see you more, we'll adjust. You're disabled now. I doubt your old job in finance will take you back. And society isn't kind to people like you. Don't expect to fight me for custody. You gave up on her once. Don't flaunt your fatherhood now. Also, considering your finances, I won't ask for child support. I paused, then added softly, Oliver, I've only ever wanted a peaceful divorce. No drama. No fighting. I truly loved you once, and though things ended badly, I hope we can still be friends, for our daughter's sake. At least. His face crumbled. Maybe he finally realized there was no going back. His voice trembled. Okay, tomorrow morning at 9, I'll wait for you at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Then he left, hobbling away on his crutch. Moments later, my phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, I hesitated. It was Oliver's brother's wife. We knew each other, but had never spoken privately. Curious. I answered. The voice on the other end was full of excitement. Girl, you're finally back. Seriously, you're my idol now. I frowned slightly, sensing my confusion. She continued, you have no idea, after you left, Oliver's treatment cost tens of thousands a day. His parents sold their house back home, borrowed money from my husband and everyone else, just to save him. If you hadn't left, you'd be buried in debt now, millions. Maybe. And that Julia, at first. She looked all devoted, helping Oliver, feeding him, cleaning him, but not even a month passed and she bailed, claiming work took her overseas. Please, she just didn't want to take care of a cripple. Oh, and while everyone else was scraping together money for Oliver's treatment, Julia didn't pay a single cent. What a joke. He nearly died for her. I smiled bitterly. I had expected this outcome long ago. But however it turned out, it wasn't my business. As long as Oliver didn't try to dump his medical debt on me, we could part peacefully. Fortunately, he still had some decency. When we met at the bureau the next day, he didn't mention his debts. He even used the original divorce agreement, 60% of the assets to me. I didn't refuse. Why should I turn down free money? After we got the divorce certificate, Oliver's eyes turned red. He opened his mouth several times, then finally asked, "Can I see our daughter today?" "Of course," I replied. Chapter 10. That same day, I had the nanny bring my daughter downstairs. When Oliver saw her, he cried until his eyes were red and swollen. He turned his head to look at me. If I hadn't left that day, would I have lived a completely different life? I gave a small smile. I don't know about the rest, but my daughter would have had a father. Oliver burst into tears again at my words, but I pretended not to see. I only let him stay with our daughter for 30 minutes before I said calmly, "She's about to take her nap. You should go. Come again next month." His hands clenched tightly, but in the end, he said nothing. After that, Oliver came every month without fail to spend a little time with her. Sometimes he asked if he could take her to visit her grandparents. I refused every time. When she turned 6, I finally gave her the choice, whether to visit her grandparents, whether to go to her father's place. She did go with him once, but never again, because during that one visit, my father-in-law spent the whole meal cursing me. After that, my daughter never went back. Oliver's visits dwindled too, especially after he remarried when our daughter was 10, to a woman with little education and, apparently, a son of her own. Since then, he rarely came to see his daughter. I don't know if he's happy, but my daughter and we're doing just fine. On holidays, we fly abroad. We travel the world. Sometimes, I ask my daughter if she resents me for raising her without a father. Every time, she gives me a disgusted look. One dad isn't enough? You keep bringing home handsome uncles. I'm starting to worry I'll never get married.